Hey, this is Joe. Today I'm going to be reviewing my 1980 Honda CB750F. This is a cafe racer that I was working on for about 2 years. So I'm going to go through a bunch of the features, things that I've done with the bike. If you have any questions, feel free to post it in the comments. Here we go. So starting from the front, I painted the wheels black. I also painted the inside of the brake discs black as well. It has stock front brakes. These are still stock fork sliders, but I replaced the springs with progressive springs, and then I put a heavier weight in there. I used a 20 weight for the forks. I then added fork gaiters because I like the blackout look on the Honda. And one of the nice things about the 750F is that it has dual front brake calipers. So the front end has a lot of custom parts. So first, I like the LED headlights. These are really nice because if you try to use the OEM at night, you'll find that it doesn't do a great job. These headlights, I like the style. Then I buy a large bucket so that I can fit the majority of wiring in here. So I really like this style speedometer and tachometer. What I really like about it is that I can wire in all of the LEDs. So you've got your high beam, you've got your neutral light, you've got your oil pressure, and then you have your turn signals. So they work for either direction. And the turn signals, I really like these slim LED. So they're nice and bright, they're tiny. And then I also like using these brackets that mount to this bucket. So these brackets already have a hole where these turn signals fit in nicely. Now on the rear, what I did was I cut the frame here, and then I bought this frame loop and then welded it to the frame. And the frame loop already had the integrated tail light and turn signals. So when you hit the brake, you can see those also turn on. This is really nice because everything is integrated really nicely into the tail. Now on the fork bridge, this is still the stock fork bridge, and I powder coated it black. And then instead of trimming down where the old handlebars were, I 3D printed these inserts and then got bolts that fit in. This is really nice because if the next person wants to mount something like a phone, GPS mount, anything like that, they could potentially reuse these mounts, or they could buy something that inserts. Also nice, I found this anodized black cap, which I think looks really nice with this. I also use these clip-ons, and then I buy controls. I think this is off the earlier model CB, and I really like this. Right? It looks just like stock, but it's newer. I really like these grips. And then these mirrors, I'm a big fan of as well. On the other side, I wanted matching controls. So you've got your headlight and then high beams right here. And then these also integrate with the horn and the turn signals. So this is where Honda had them stock on the left side. So another thing that I like is the clutch lever and the brake lever. I like the black and red styling, but these are also nice because they are adjustable. So depending on how you like the feel, right, you can easily change the adjustment here. One of the challenges when you move from the high handlebars to the clip-ons is you have to make sure you can run all of the cables. So I'm still using the stock cable here, so I ran it up over the headlight bucket. And then the throttle cable, this is a single throttle cable because I'm using a Mikuni Carbs setup. And this runs down and around the front, and then it runs under the tank. And then it terminates down here. Now the carbs that I'm running are Murray's Mikuni carbs. I think these are the VM34s. Murray custom makes these inlet valves. So you have one carb for 2 cylinders. These are pretty aggressive carbs. They are flat slide instead of CB carbs. So you get a lot of power and torque in wide open throttle. These carbs come with a single throttle cable instead of the dual that is on OEM. And then it also comes with a quick turn throttle tube because the travel is a little different from stock. So one of the other things that I did on this throttle cable is the throttle cable seats up here where it splits into two and then goes into the carbs. I actually created a spacer that puts a little more tension on the cable. The reason I did that is to tighten up this cable. If you don't do that, sometimes you get a little too much play up here. Now the tank is the stock tank. I didn't make any modifications outside of just painting it. So I went with an Eastwood Interstate black paint. I like this because it's super glossy already. And then I used a 2K clear coat on top. The reason you use 2K is because if oil does spill, right, it's not going to eat through the clear coat. So it provides a little additional protection and it makes the paint a little bit harder. Now for the design, I did a slanted white stripe down the tank. I really like this because it has a non-symmetrical feel, which I think is really cool. I pulled the engine out and then I painted it with a 2K ceramic engine paint. And I didn't use a clear coat over top, but you can see how shiny it does come out. You'll notice I went with chrome caps on the outside of the engine. I think this adds a really nice touch to the black look. Instead of the stock airbox, I have K&N filters on both sides. I also like some of these little touches where I have a air filter here. And on the other side, I have a screen. So typically these have hoses that go up into the intake box, but since we don't have that box anymore, I thought this was a neat look. And then I've also added a K&N inline fuel filter. I've tried other fuel filters, but sometimes they don't let the fuel flow as well. So I really recommend these, and they're pretty easy to clean too. You can just spray carb cleaner down in them after you remove them. This is an aftermarket petcock. There's still a gas filter in here as well that you can replace. So some of the other touches, I went and powder coated a bunch of the components. So I powder coated the engine mounts to this black. What I like about powder coating is it provides a more durable surface than paint does. It's much harder to scratch, it lasts a lot longer. So I powder coated the engine mounts. I powder coated the kickstand. The kickstand is actually from a CB900, which is a little bit longer because I went with larger tires. So on the front, I went with 110 90 19s. And then on the back, I went with 120 90 18s. So I think these wheels really balance out the front and the rear, because typically the front wheel on these stock is a thin wheel, and I wanted them, when you're looking at the bike, to be pretty even. We also have custom saddlebags on the left and right. The seat is a Brisbane seat, and then I mounted it underneath the frame with a custom bracket, so you can remove these two bolts and this to get it out. I upgraded the shocks and the exhaust. The exhaust is a 4-into-1 Delcovic exhaust, which looks really nice. It sounds really mean, and I love the way that it sits on the back of the bike. There are also a bunch of other upgrades that I made to the electronics. So I went with the ProCom, which you can't see. I went with the ProCom. I upgraded the starter solenoid. I also did some internal upgrades where I upgraded the stator. I also upgraded the regulator that's on the other side. A lot of times those can burn out. And then I also upgraded the clutch friction plates to heavy duty, as well as heavy duty clutch springs. So this allows you to utilize the power from the carbs really well. Another piece I forgot to mention that I had powder coated is the brake pedal, as well as the rear sets on both sides. Last addition that I really enjoy is I always thought this was a cool look. It's a mud flap that mounts to your rear axle, and then it holds your license plate. So it gives it a little bit of a unique look, and the color scheme goes really well with the rest of the bike. These saddlebags are a really nice addition. A lot of times on the cafe builds, a lot of the electronics and things are removed from inside this triangle. I like these saddlebags because it gives me a place to store things like a water bottle. I can do a light jacket, I can do tools. So it makes it a little more convenient. So now I've got the door open so that you can see it with a little more light. And I'm a little more zoomed out on the camera. All right, to start the bike, turn the key on, set it to run. I'm gonna come down to the petcock, turn it on. For these carbs, there's a choke on each one, so I'm going to push down it on both. I'm gonna turn gas a couple times to get it started. Now I'll hit the starter.